welcome to our lesson on charts in spreadsheets. So charts are used to communicate our data and information in a visual manner. It's obviously much easier to look at a chart and determine certain things than looking at just a table with numbers in. Our brains just can't necessarily process all of that. So let's have a look at this first sheet here. We've got some information on sales. So in January, Tamron sold 10 units of Let's Make It chocolates this time. In February, 451, and in March, 445. And obviously in January, the sales will be low because everyone spent their money during Christmas. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a chart that will actually show this information for us. Now we only have 3 months here, but that's fine. We're going to start with something called a line chart. Now a line chart is used to show a trend over a longer period of time. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight the headings, and I'm going to use Tamron, the first little seller over here. So let's just highlight that again. So the first step is to highlight your information. If you can get that right, then the battle's half won. And then we're going to go to the Insert tab, and we're going to go to our chart section. So here's our line chart options, and I'm just going to select the first one. And there's our chart. Okay, it's going to be really big and in your face, so let's just quickly make this a little bit smaller so we can actually see what's going on here. Okay, so it obviously shows an upward swing from January to February, and from February to March it kind of stabilized. Okay, so obviously if we do this over a year, it will show us even more information, and it will also help Tamron because she could look at it and decide, you know what, in January I might not even bother trying to sell anything. I'll rather put more effort into February or March. So your charts are also there to help you make decisions based on the data that you created it on. Okay. The second kind of chart that we're going to look at is the column or bar chart. They're both the same thing. And the column or bar charts, they're used to compare information with each other. So what I want to do now is I want to compare Tamron's sales with Untiling's sales. Okay, so I'm going to highlight my headings as well. And then I'm going to highlight the first 2 people in my table. And I'm going to go to Insert. And then I'm going to go to column. You can use bar as well, it's the same thing. I'm going to use the column chart, and I'm just going to stick to the simple clustered column. Okay, once again, let's just make this smaller so you can see, kind of see what's going on here at least. Okay, and this is quite nice because now you can see Tamron and Taoling's data right next to each other. Okay, so obviously in January it wasn't great. In February, though, Tamron did much better than Taoling, and then in March, Taoling had a bit of a wake-up call, and she also started selling more stuff. Okay, right, so this is obviously useful in schools where we compare your marks, for instance. So we compare Term 1 and Term 2's marks, and it's very nice if you can see it visually. So if there's a problem with one of your subjects, we'll be able to pick it up quite easily using something like a chart. Okay. And then the last kind of chart, or one of the main categories, is the pie chart. Okay, and the pie chart, it starts with a P, and it's there to show percentage. So hopefully that will help you remember that pie percentage. So it will show you what part of a whole your data represents. Okay, so this time I'm going to highlight my headings again, and now we're going to work with David here at the bottom. I'm pressing Control on my keyboard to highlight information that's not right next to each other or not adjacent. And I'm going to select Insert. I'm going to go to the pie section. And once again, I'm just going to insert the first one. Let's just make this smaller so we can see. Okay, right. And here we can see January is a very small little section of my pie chart, so he didn't sell much there. And then February a little bit more, and then in March he really went all out and sold a lot of units. Okay, right, so those are the 3 main types of charts. It's important to know which type is appropriate for what kind of data. So just go back again and have a look. Line is for longer periods of time. Column or bar is to compare, and pie is for percentages. Right, now obviously you would want to edit your charts slightly. So if you've highlighted your headings properly, if you've done that correctly, then your headings will already be there, your legends will already be filled in, so most of the work would have been done. But you can go a little bit further, and if you click on your chart tools will light up here. You've got your design tab, you've got your layout tab, and you've got your formatting tab. So you can still do a lot with your chart. For instance, if you don't want your pie chart anymore, you can change the type. You can select a different set of data, and then they've got some built-in chart styles here as well. So you can scroll down and find something that looks nice to you, and you can select that. Let's have a look at something like that, for instance. All right, and then on your layout tab, here you can add stuff like your chart heading. We already have a chart heading, but you can add your own. And very important here, you can add something called data labels. So at the moment, if we look at this pie chart, okay, we can see that it didn't sell much during January, but we don't know what percentage that represents, and we also don't know the exact amount. If we want to know that, we're going to have to scroll up and look at the table. So alternatively, we can add some data labels here, and I'm going to add it to this. Okay, let's rather add it to the inside end, okay, because that one's really small. But okay, so there you go. You can actually now see the totals on your screen as well. Okay, so it's not the percentage, obviously, because the percentage is out of 100, and this is already 150 and 554. So this is not percentages, it's the actual units sold. You can change your data labels to percentages if you wanted to. And then your legend here on the side, you can choose to display this or not to display this by selecting your layout tab, selecting legend, and you can actually switch that off, or you can move it around. So I might want to move it to the bottom of this particular pie chart. Okay, if it gets squished up like it did now, you can always go and just resize your chart so it's actually easier to view. Okay, there's lots and lots of settings that you can change on a chart, and obviously there's lots of settings that we can examine. So it's one of those things that you'll probably never know everything about charts, but when you are preparing for your exams, it's your duty to go through each one of these little tabs. Let's go to format, for instance, now, and to have a look at the options available to you, because that's what the examiner will do. They will go through and say, right, this is quite nice. I'm going to ask him to add a shape effect to the pie chart, for instance. Okay, and then obviously here you can change the size, you can change the outline colors. Like I say, many different options to customize what your chart actually looks like. Okay, let's quickly go back to our line chart that we started off with on the first spreadsheet here, or worksheet here. Okay, so let's just make it slightly bigger. We've got some grid lines running across our line chart here, and that's there to make it easier to read. Okay, so you can see here from the side, from the y-axis here, in February it was above 400. Okay, but you can add even more grid lines to make it even easier to read. Okay, and you'll find that on your chart tools. Okay, so let's just have a look. I think it's on layout. There you go, layout. Okay, and let's have a look. Here's your grid lines. So let's add some more horizontal grid lines. We've got the major ones, but we can actually add some major and minor grid lines. Okay, so it's even finer. So you can even, if you wanted to print it out, you'd be able to see it in more definition. You can actually see exactly what the amount is supposed to be. Right, you can obviously also change the axis. So instead of putting into 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, so in 100 intervals, you could change that. You could make it 50 intervals or 20 intervals. So really, there's so much you can customize in charts that this is something that if you're going to go into detail, will take you 2 weeks to work through in class. So please take the time to work through some of these functions on your own as well. Right, okay, let's quickly have a look at OpenOffice. So I'm just going to open a spreadsheet here. Okay, and What happens in OpenOffice, very similar to what we've done now. I'm just going to highlight some information. I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to select Chart. Okay, and then a chart wizard is going to appear. So it's going to gradually take you through all the steps of customizing your actual chart. So similar to what we've done just now, and your chart will look exactly the same as it does in Office 2010. Right, and that concludes our lesson on charts in spreadsheets.